So to start out here, I want to talk about a few industry trends that have led us to this moment that the metaverse is having, especially in terms of how it can be applied for soft skill training. In the past 2.5, 3 years, there's been an incredible proliferation of hardware from some of the biggest company names in the world, really. People are familiar with Facebook, now Meta Labs, through their Quest 2 headset. Other Facebook Meta products that are coming out in augmented reality glasses. You see the Ray-Ban stories up there. Hewlett-Packard, HTC, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all have been investing billions upon billions of dollars, in many cases working with each other to deliver both virtual reality and soon to be augmented reality devices to the consumer in an affordable and powerful form factor that has made it much more accessible for businesses and organizations to use in their everyday work. Looming above all of this investment in hardware the past 2.5 years is certainly the biggest consumer product tech company in the world, Apple, which has been rumored a long time and still now is rumored in the next 12 to 18 months to be releasing a mixed reality device of their own. As we look forward from the Get Real standpoint, releasing this device is going to be a seminal moment, much in the same way the first Oculus Quest was, will be a real turning point in the industry in terms of mass adoption. Everyone is familiar what happens when Apple releases a product. They usually get the form factor right, they get the consumer UI, UX right. So there will be incredible interest in the business when Apple releases their device, and that's something that we're looking for as being another catalyst in the continual growth of the industry. What's really happened because of this proliferation of hardware has become now the second wave of product-specific software created for business use cases. So you're seeing an explosion of soft skill training and job skill training platforms like Spatial that we're in today for virtual collaboration and hosting events. We've seen stuff for design and AEC where you can walk spaces before they're even built, in ways that you can visualize them in 3D to make key design decisions before any cost is incurred and changes can be made. Marketing teams, people looking for virtual office space, sports, any sort of curated fan or influencer experience is all happening now in the metaverse through a host of new software platforms that are made accessible. I would say accelerated by the pandemic, but also accelerated by this whole idea of around remote work and delivering content in a remote fashion to the user. Delivered very effectively and at scale. The pressure on an organization to keep their teams trained and with the turnover rates, with the new workforce, that pressure has never been higher. And so people are looking for new and innovative solutions around training to help them ease that burden and pain. And virtual reality is one that they are turning to very, very quickly and in increasingly large numbers. VR training, specifically for soft skills and for job skills, has a number of benefits that I know Amy's going to talk about in greater detail in her portion of the presentation. But it just allows people to train and trigger emotional responses from learners. People interact a different way in 3 dimensions than they do on a Zoom or in a textbook or in a classroom situation. There's many different studies out there that talks about learning being up to 4 times faster when delivered through VR. This augments other forms of training, both classroom, written, computer-based. It works very well in conjunction to help specialize and hone in on skills not to necessarily replace all other means of training, but to be an additional source to optimize that training. Certainly the remote aspect of it reduces a lot of logistical hurdles for both learners and organizations. It allows for a consistency across role-playing activities that can't be reproduced when remote instructors go to different groups. The ability to control the environment and to control the experience in VR is one of the leading benefits to being able to create these interactive environments. It's a safe place to fail. There's no judgments. get to practice over and over again in realistic learning environments, the ability to get feedback and assessment, both from quizzes and tests, data that can be pulled from the headset as headset technology evolves. And it's asynchronous. It's repeatable learning. I can go back in, I can repeat training 10, 20, 30, 50 times over a weekend to hone in, whether that be sales training or diversity inclusion training. I'm no longer just restricted to when that corporate instructor is in town for the week, or my class is meeting, or my cohort is meeting, or my orientation session is meeting. So a lot of people are honing on to these benefits and others as they think about ways to improve and augment and beef up the way that they deliver training to their teams. We talk a little bit about the landscape of, like, what are you getting when you're talking decisions that you need to make as you're trying to evaluate different software platforms for soft skills training. I wanted to highlight some of the different choices that are out there, some of the different choices that are out there in the marketplace. First of all, from a content perspective, there's choices out there between off the shelf, so pre-packaged content on a basic subject matter like diversity inclusion, like sales training, like operating a forklift, et cetera, versus customized training. So depending on the nature of what needs to be trained, whether there's a specific brand identity or specific special sauce of the way a particular corporation likes to protect their IP or like to train their employees, how they deal with customers, how they deal with sales calls, how they deal with management situations that can be difficult to manage. So people will choose off-the-shelf software to help get them started and easy to get people involved in an experience, but they'll also sometimes migrate to custom-created modules for when they really feel like they need to hone in on a specific skill that's unique to their company. These experiences can be single-player or multiplayer, so we could be in group learning sessions like we're in today that are instructor-led, or they can be preset scenarios that are delivered individually to the user via headset or browser. I talked earlier about data and assessment. There's a variety of different ways to include exams, quizzes, other learning objectives embedded into the modules, taking advantage of as the hardware evolves, being able to track eye movements, being able to leverage external inputs like heart rate, hand movement. Imagine teaching job interview training skills and being able to see when heart rate or anxiety rate comes up in a user and to monitor those types of things. That's that real experience where people can kind of learn firsthand how to interact interpersonally and do it in a safe way that's repeatable. But all those different skills and data can be pulled in and used. Certainly the advanced features that are available in some of these training platforms are codeless editing. There is so that allows learning and development teams to edit their own content on the fly, especially if it's very important if they're in rapidly changing industries. We've also got ways where you can switch roles and you can kind of take another position or role in a conversation to kind of see how you look from the other party's perspective. We've seen VR training programs that deal in soft skills with live actors, and we've also seen them work leveraging conversational artificial intelligence. So getting away from even branching of conversations and choosing option A, B, C to have a conversation and actually having it recognize the words that we're saying, the phrases that we're using, and how people want to either restrict or encourage certain elements of language to be used when able to be when they're delivering that training, or how they want to interact with their customers or colleagues at work. Lastly, there's platform companies like Immerse, who we'll hear from in a few minutes, that deal a lot with handling the content management piece, different modules, different areas of training. Can be soft skills, can be job skill training, how to deploy that at scale, how to manage that content. Think not 10 users, not 20 users, but 500 or 1,000 users. And so there's platform out there that excel very well at trying to deliver that content at scale with all the challenges to the enterprise that involves. Beyond just the product analysis and thinking about how these products differ from each other, there's also the buyer's journey, is what we like to refer to as. There's how do people either get started or how do they get smarter? And that involves taking a look at your own organization and saying, what are the opportunities for training where we can have the most effect, the most impact, the most return on where's our problem areas, if you will. Trying to understanding how to build buy-in on your internal team. It's great. What we see a lot is clients come to us, they have one person that's championing VR for training, and they've got nobody else in the organization that can back them up with that. So we work with groups to help kind of build that buy-in around their team, to help have that be a group, a team, an innovation effort amongst the firms to increase the likelihood of success and a successful rollout. Questions around the right hardware and software combinations for the firm. Hardware market evolves rapidly as well as the software. No one likes to get pinned into different platforms if they don't feel like they're going to scale with them over a long period of time. How should pilot programs be set up for success? How can you make the case for ROI to senior leadership and really hone in on what budgets we're attacking by rolling out this new form of training? Is it the travel budget? Is it the T&E budget? Is it the corporate development budget? Is it, some element of all three of those? Is it marketing? All of these ways that you can go to senior executives, decision makers at the firm and say, this is why we're doing this. This is what it's going to save us. And this is how the efficacy proves out to be a really good use case for our firm. And lastly, ways that you can leverage the investment in an ongoing way. That's where Get Real comes in, and we can work with you in a strategic fashion to help you take that investment you made in hardware and software, and how can you leverage it to other use cases so that you're getting a better return on that initial investment. When you put all that together, both the product analysis and that buyer's journey piece, you think about where to go to get smarter. I think I'd kind of close here by saying, from a Get Real perspective, our belief, although it is new, the technology is ready now. Competitive advantages for firms is available. It can be harvested and benefit an organization today. You really need a partner to help you either get started or help you get smarter. In the early stage, we're still in the early stages of the evolution of the industry. There's no real clearly defined path. People, products, companies are rapidly evolving. You need someone, everyone has day jobs. You need people that can monitor this closely every day and be able to work and recommend and implement different platforms as the technology changes and as it evolves and as the use cases evolves within the firm. There's an advantage to firms who start now. You're going to learn what the tools and the resources can do. You're going to understand your individual use cases better. You're going to be able to see the results. You're going to be down the road before the mainstream adoption occurs. Things like the Apple headset. When your competitors are running to find out more about how they can use VR in training, you're going to be that much far ahead of your competitors. And when adoption is blessed, you're going to be already hitting the ground running. We like to use a phrase, think back to it. What if back in the early 90s, if you had access to a BlackBerry before 18 months before your competitors did, and you're running a political campaign or you're running a sales team, that was real advantage. It seems silly now. It seems as if, that's table stakes now or other different technological advantages, but it wasn't back then. And so we're really at that early stages of what we think is the next wave of business tools that can enhance people's way that they interact and communicate with their employees, the way they train. And certainly that's why people come to Get Real, to get that guidance and to start on that buyer's journey as to what programs are out there that fit well for them. So with that, I'm going to pause, say a quick thanks. I'll be back to speak a little bit later, and I'm going to turn over to our second speaker, Amy Baker from Immerse. And Amy, I'll let you introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
So thank you. So I'm Amy Baker. I work for Immerse. I'm thrilled to be here. This is super exciting. This is actually my first Metaverse event. I love VR. I usually am in a headset, playing games, working out 3 to 5 times a week. But this is my first spatial event, and it's really cool. And hopefully it gives you a good taste for just the power of the technology and how, like Ed was saying, having a sense of presence and having the ability to replicate environments can really help you with your training. And so specifically today, we're going to talk about soft skills powered by VR training. We work with a lot of clients. Historically, we worked with a lot of technical skills use cases, but in the last, I'd say 9 months, with announcements from Accenture and Meta and Microsoft and pretty much everyone about these large investments they're making in VR training overall, soft skills has really started to have a lot more awareness. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Typically when I'm talking with partners or clients, they ask a few questions. The first one usually is, well, why VR? Why, would I look at investing in virtual reality training when I've got e-learning, when I've got video learning, when I've made investments in other LMSs? And so the answer to that really lies in the fact that this is an experiential technology, right? We're sitting here today for those of us in headsets or even those, using a browser. It's highly interactive. It's highly engaging. You're as opposed to watching, a video or maybe answering some questions, through, sorry, I don't know if that's me doing that. Asking some questions in like an e-learning course. In VR, you're have an avatar. You've got that sense of presence that allows you to have that emotional connection inside an environment. You are using your controllers to move around, to complete tasks, to solve challenges, right? So you're basically getting into like a flow state, right? Where you're totally focused. Sorry, there's a discrepancy between the back thing and the front thing here. And so obviously, because VR is highly interactive, right, that creates these opportunities for skilling, for upskilling, for reskilling, for working together, not just on things like technical skills training or safety training, but for things that you are learning how to communicate, how to listen better, how to hone your leadership skills, how to use customer service training in VR to achieve really significant results. And so these are the types of results for soft skills that clients are currently experiencing. And so if we look at a study that the Harvard Business Review did last year, for example, right, work has changed. People are working remotely due to COVID, and a lot of times they are now in a permanent position to work remotely. And so if you're working remote, yes, you have access to video and e-learning, but you're missing out on those in-person training opportunities that can really be critical in things for soft skills training. And so if you look at how do employees really learn, reflect, and practice and maximize their training time, virtual reality can be a great addition to your sort of training technologies. And while we always ask our clients to sort of do an analysis after they've adopted VR for some time, and you saw some of those results in the first slide there. I didn't call attention to them at that time because they're revolved around technical skills training. But again, with soft skills training becoming more recognized underneath virtual reality training, other companies, independent companies, you don't have to take Immerse's word for it since we've got a totally vested interest in helping you adopt VR training, but you can look at outside independent firms that are doing studies as well. Right. And so they are seeing, for example, through this PwC study on soft skills training, orders of magnitude in terms of the results that they're achieving with using VR training for soft skills. So things like, more focused, more emotionally connected, more competent applying skills, 275% increase, right, in their competence level after taking some virtual reality training. Those are pretty significant results, but they really translate to hard dollar cost savings, right? So a lot of times the other question that we get is how much does it cost to do VR training? And it can be an investment just depending on what you're looking for and what use case you're interested in. But in general, we sort of say, okay, well, if you could replace one headcount for a full-time employee, or if you could replace 2 employees that were trainers, or if you could shave, 4 weeks off of a training program, try and start to think about the investment in terms of that return on investment overall. And there are actually quite a few companies that have done implementations for soft skills training. So you'll see a few of them here. This is sort of the fun stuff, right? These are companies that are well known, that are finding real results. So H&R Block, for example, they're using virtual reality training for their customer service reps. And those reps have reported that VR helps them improve their skills in handling difficult conversations with customers. So if you are looking at customer service reps that have been trained using VR training, and now they're able to handle their call volume, increase their call volume significantly, right? That's hard dollar cost savings. If you're getting a lot more customer satisfaction in terms of, recommendations or ratings or reviews, driven by the fact that these reps are really comfortable talking to different, people when they're having those difficult conversations with upset customers, that's real hard dollar cost savings. HP Financial, that's another sort of really interesting use case, right? So this is an investment firm. They have a lot of high value customers. And so they did VR training because they didn't want to put someone in front of a high value customer without really understanding the impact maybe of, what those conversations could lead to without the right types of coaching. So they did 30-minute C-level VR training, and they created these lifelike scenarios, basically that the reps and account managers were able to do that role playing. So if they're delivering bad news, for example, or they want to ask for increased funding for another project, for example, those are some of the things where they looked at how VR training was basically helping those reps to understand how to think and react before jeopardizing the relationship. Another very common question that we get is, okay, I understand that, it's possibly an investment. I understand that there's going to be a great ROI. I still don't know where to start, right? So that's another very common thing as you're thinking about, well, where do I start in looking at what use cases might translate well to virtual reality? In general, the platform is powerful, right? The technology is very powerful. So a lot of use cases can translate really well. There's a few things, computer-based learning, for example, doesn't translate well. If you talk to Get Real or you talk to Immerse, we have a vested interest in making your VR training successful. And so we're going to give you sort of honest and transparent guidance about, yes, this is a good use case, or no, this isn't a good use case. So start with your use case. The use case that you define is going to lead to the content for the course that you select. When we were out there talking to clients, a lot of them did have the concern about cost. And so that led us to create the world's first off-the-shelf immersive library or marketplace, the Immerse Marketplace. If you're looking for a good place to start and you know where you've got some pain, check out the marketplace. We might have some of these off-the-shelf titles that you can use even as part of a pilot or a proof of concept. Start with 1 or 2 titles from this library. They're very cost effective. It's really frictionless to adopt these into your training environment. And typically we've seen clients, onboard in less than 30 days. So we have over 100 titles right now in the library, and it's growing really quickly. Anything from people skills to sales and customer service skills, well-being and leadership. And I just want to look at the well-being sort of table here for just a second. So work-life balance is a huge thing today. It's really important for a lot of organizations to try and get their employees as sort of balanced and productive and happy as possible, because that really does lead to, centered, balanced employees do lead to more productive employees. So we've added these sort of well-being exercises and training experiences into the marketplace, things like breathing exercises, things like weekly wisdom or meditation. I do an app called Trip once or twice a week, and it really is life-changing. So I would recommend that you go check out the marketplace, see if any of these titles resonate, or maybe they might even be just good, like a good jumping off point for you to try and understand what's available and do they match up to your use case. And in closing, because I know we're getting a little short on time here, it really does take a little bit more than just buying a few VR headsets today to do VR training, right? To Ed's point, do a proof of concept, do a trial, get people on board internally looking at VR training. But when you're ready to scale, you really do need to have more than just some headsets, right? And so that's where the Immerse platform comes in. There we go. If you could play that video, that would be awesome.
Immerse has been in the learning innovation space for a long time now, and the arrival of virtual reality, we believe, is the defining technology for this space. Our tech is used by some of the world's biggest companies across multiple sectors to create training experiences that were very dangerous or very costly. VR scenarios that would be impossible to recreate in a classroom. That makes for a safer workforce that is more engaged and better equipped. Our customers come to us because we create highly dynamic, engaging VR content. But there are lots of companies that can do that. The big difference with Immerse is we have the underlying technology to ensure that that is delivered in a secure, scalable, and measurable way. We're beginning to see with our existing clients, through the deployment of our current solutions, that there are very positive signs around business performance and higher levels of engagement with the workforce than they've ever seen before.
We're giving people this experience that they would never really have had before, a fully immersive experience. But the only usage of that is if we know what they're doing in that immersive world. And so the data behind what they're experiencing, that is more crucial and more important because that leads to the real skill development.
The feedback has been excellent, outstanding, groundbreaking, especially from our defence clients who see this as a way to modernise training. So much more efficient to get people into multiple VR headsets than to wait for the single simulator that they have.
VR technology is evolving very quickly now, and I think it's beyond doubt that VR for learning and collaboration is going to completely transform the workforce of the future.
Awesome, thank you. And in closing, obviously we've got a platform that allows you basically to train anytime, anywhere. We support virtual reality, augmented reality. We also support WebGL, which is a 2D interactive training, so that as you scale, you can use this with employees who don't have a headset that are maybe browser-based or phone-based. But the real power of the platform is the analytics that you can capture. As you heard in that video, right, to get into a headset and do training, it may be more focused, it may be more engaging, but it really, the power of it is to change behavior, right? And so by capturing analytics at a level really unheard of before, right? We can capture up to 30 data points per user per second on our platform. This is where the real power and skill development comes in. And so I'm going to skip over the last slide and just say thank you so much. I'm happy to, stick around, answer any questions. Please feel free to reach out, and best of luck on your VR journey.